In this video, we'll learn how to use clipping masks in Illustrator. Clipping masks let us use the boundary of a vector shape to enclose other shapes. You could think of a clipping mask almost like a little window where shapes enclosed inside the clipping mask are visible and shapes outside the clipping mask are hidden. I've got the file clippingmaskdemo.ai open from this week's demo files. Here, I've got a version of my demo for this week's assignment. I've done a little more work on it, and I'd like to focus on the foot shape of this seagull here. If I turn on my reference image in the Layers panel, I can see these black shapes on the end of each toe. So I'd like some similar details in my drawing. Now, I could potentially come in here with the pen tool and try to carefully trace around the edge of each toe. But if I zoom in enough, that leaves gaps either where the foot shape behind is showing through, or the toenail shape is overlapping a bit too far. Even if I did manage to draw it perfectly, if I wanted to make those toenail shapes larger or smaller, I'd pretty much have to redraw them completely. Anywhere I'd be double tracing along the same edge I've already drawn, or anytime I'd be unable to easily change a shape if I needed to, that's usually a clue that there's an easier way to do things. So let's go ahead and delete that shape I just drew, and I'll use a clipping mask instead. First, I'll select the shape that I'd like to use as a clipping mask. In this case, it's this shape here, named left leg in the Layers panel. I'll click on the target to select that shape. Then, near the bottom of my toolbar, I'll switch my drawing mode. Right now, I'm in the default normal drawing mode, where new shapes are drawn on top of existing shapes in my file. I want to switch this to draw inside mode. So I'll go ahead and click that. And notice now how I get these dashed corners around the shape that was targeted. That tells me that it's now a clipping shape, and its edges are going to act as a boundary for new shapes that I draw. So let's go to the color picker, and I'll click to activate the fill, and just bring up my swatches and pick a color. And I'll set the stroke to the same. That'll just make it a little bit easier to see what I'm drawing. Now I can use any of the drawing tools, such as the pen tool or the ellipse tool, for example. Let's do the first one with the pen tool. And what I'm doing here is drawing a shape that overlaps with that left leg shape. And I'm not worrying about the parts that extend beyond it, because the clipping mask is going to hide those for me. So I can just click and start making sort of an oblong shape here. So the clipping mask almost acts like a reverse overlap, where only the parts of the two shapes that intersect with each other are shown, and the parts that extend beyond the boundary are hidden. Let's try again with the ellipse tool. So you can see how much easier this is to do. I don't have to retrace any part of my drawing, and on top of that, I get the additional bonus of my design staying really flexible. And to see how, let's take a look at what's going on in our Layers panel. I can see what started as that left leg shape has now been changed into a clip group. So the clip group itself is going to contain the clipping path and all of its parts. Let's expand the contents and take a look at what we have going on here. At the top of the clip group, we'll see the clipping mask itself, and its name will be underlined. So that is our boundary shape. Again, you could think of it like a stencil or a window, and all the shapes below are enclosed inside of our clipping path. And these behave just like the regular shapes in any layer. So they follow the stacking order of foreground to background, and we could target them individually and move them around. So if I wanted one of those shapes to be a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, that's really easy to accomplish, and I don't have to spend any time redrawing that boundary again and again. As long as I'm in this draw inside drawing mode, anything I draw is going to be added to that clip group. If I switch back to normal mode, I'll draw normally. So I'll go ahead and make one more shape here, and since I'm in normal drawing mode, that doesn't get added to my clip group. If I did want that shape in my clip group, I could do two things. I could either just click and drag and drop that underneath the clipping path in the Layers panel. The other strategy I can take is to target my clipping mask, go back into draw inside mode, and draw shapes from there. And it looks like I may need to set a different fill so we can actually see the shape. Now, if I decide that I don't want a clipping mask anymore, I can target the clip group, then from the menu bar, click Object, Clipping Mask, Release, and everything will be separated into individual vector shapes. Okay, that's an overview of how to use clipping masks in Illustrator.